The Shattering Myths. Yesterday we were considering the statements that Yahowah made in his Torah. This would be Shemot, Names, Exodus 12:1 and 2, leading to his depiction of the first Passover. And he said, in addition, Yahowah spoke, made promises and declarations as God to Moshe and to Aaron in the realm of the crucible of Egypt. And we were considering the letters that comprise Egypt. And Egypt really isn't in the text. It's Mitzrayim, which is the plural of Mitzrah, which means crucible in Hebrew. So, Kirk, we were kind of surprised well, not surprised, but it was interesting to find that the first letter of Mitzrayim speaks of water. And, of course, Egypt is, the entire civilization was based on the Nile and was along the Nile.
Well, every major civilization that started by some great big river. I mean, from the Hindustan, yeah. So,
right. Exactly. Even Ur of the Chaldeans, where Abraham came from, it was the mouth of the Euphrates River. So here you have the Mem speaking of the river, and then a most interesting letter.
Yeah, a
letter that is the signpost. Boy, did Yahowah put some signs along that river.
Yeah, Moshe got to deliver them too.
Yeah, there's not only the 10 plagues that were signs along that river that no human institution, even if it's the most powerful country on earth, which Egypt was at the time, is any match for Yahowah when he wants to take care of his children. So those 10 signs, and they were pretty big, powerful signs. But there was also the sign of Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, and Shavuah that were established as part of this, where Yahowah said, these are the signposts on the way to the Promised Land.
I had an email, and I want to inject that question right now if I can.
Sure.
I think it's appropriate. I had an email, and the email was, when Moshe asked Pharaoh for 3 days off to make sacrifices, according to that sounds like King James, sacrifices in the desert, was he doing Passover? And of course, that doesn't ring a bell with me, but Passover, the big event, started when they left the thing, not when they anything in between.
No, Passover was celebrated the night before departure.
Right. So, and the other follow-up to the question that
and Passover was not celebrated in the desert. I don't know why I personally would think that. No, Passover was celebrated, and there is no sacrifice in the Passover in terms of we humans. We don't sacrifice anything. We grill lamb and consume it, and we eat unyeasted bread. We aren't sacrificing anything. Yes, it's Yahowah that's making the sacrifice. It's the lamb that's making the sacrifice, not us. But no, the sacrifice not only didn't take place before, it didn't take place in the wilderness. It took place in people's homes. That was the whole purpose of it.
Right.
In homes.
Now her follow-up question was, and I thought this out of you before I emailed her back, but in this case it's probably better. She said, did the Yehudim always celebrate the feast? And of course, just let me throw out what came to me in my mind. I know Abraham, they had a feast. He had a feast with Yahowah, and I've always thought that when Adam and Chawah were kicked out of the garden. That had to be Passover. He had to have killed a lamb to give him clothing. The day ticking that's the first day of the year, and for all this to go 6,000 years, it would have to start on Passover, don't you think?
Yeah, I think it's likely that they did, but we're certainly not told that is the case. But the implications are because of the clothing that they were covered in, and
blood was shed and they were covered.
Right, blood was shed and they were covered in that regard. So yes, you would assume that, and you would also assume that because of the difference in the sacrifice between Cain and Abel that prompted the murder.
Sure.
So all of that makes sense, but. No, do I think that did the Israelites celebrate Pesach while they were in the slaves in Egypt? I think the answer is no. But it is clear that Yahowah and Abraham not only celebrated a meal and a feast that would be very similar to the feast that Yahowah celebrates annually with us, Pesach, Matzah, B'Kodem, Shavuot, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah, but that he and Abraham actually celebrated the first official Passover on Mount Moriah between Abraham and Yishak and Yahowah and Yahusha. So that was in year 1968 BCE, exactly 40 Yobel from the time that Yosha would celebrate it for real and fulfilling it on that same mountain. But do I think that the Israelites in captivity continue to celebrate it? No, I don't think so. I don't think there's any reason to think they did. I think they were lucky to survive.
Yeah. Well, the slavery part, I was just wondering about, from Abraham to Yishak.
Right. Yeah,
Yaakov, they would have carried on whatever traditions they had.
The whole purpose of Moshe was to do two things. One was to draw them away from the political and economic and military and religious influence of Egypt. So they were being drawn away from it. If they were, Torah observant at that time, they weren't being drawn away from anything. So they were being drawn away from it. And the second purpose was to reveal Yahweh's instructions and His guidance. And so the instruction and guidance was revealed to them en route to the Promised Land. So no, I think it's highly unlikely. And if it were, we aren't told, and so it's irrelevant to our knowledge.
Yeah.
It's really, bottom line with Yahowah, He tells us that His Torah is complete and totally sufficient to restore the soul. And it's easy to understand for those who are open-minded. And that's to quote Him literally. So if it's not in the Torah, we don't need to know it.
Yeah. Well, most of it's pretty logical anyway. I mean, you would assume that if you're enslaved,
right,
you're in trouble.
Right.
You can't do nothing.
And keep this in mind too. If your wife invites you to have a special dinner with her, and you turn down that dinner, what are you going to do to your relationship with your wife?
Well, it's going to be tested, let's say.
Right. Now, would your wife be fair and being divorcing herself of you if you didn't show up for a dinner that she may have envisioned holding at some time in the future, but she never invited you to?
Hardly. Yeah.
So the Israelites had not been invited to Pesach, Matzah, and B'Kodem prior to the time of the Exodus, so they can't be held accountable for that which they weren't invited to.
No.
And now that we have been invited, we can be held accountable for ignoring the invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So the difference is, what side of the invitation are you on?
Well,
And the demarcation line for the invitation is the Exodus, and that's not by happenstance. Yahweh is trying to say, here's where mankind was. You were slaves. You had no freedom. You were maltreated. You were oppressed by religion and politics and economic schemes and by an oppressive military, a ruthless military. That's where you were. I'm taking you to the Promised Land. I'm going to take care of you there. I'm going to free you there. I'm going to take you to a land flowing with milk and honey. That's where they were going. Pesach Matzah B'Kodam and Shavuah demark that transition. It's only one time in human history where this occurred, and therefore that's when Yahowah presents it to us. For him to pronounce Pesach Matzah B'Kodam 50 years into their enslavement and leave them as slaves for the next 350 years, that would be defeat the whole purpose, wouldn't it?
Absolutely.
So, we ought to recognize there's the reason for the timing and make the connection.
Well, it's always a logical thing. I thought a few of those things. You always find more meat on the bone than I do, so that's good.
So anyway, it's the crucible for the purpose of saying, you see, speaking to them in the crucible. So what he's looking to do is free them from it. For the purpose of saying Amar again. This month, Kodesh. What do you find about Kodesh that is interesting? It means to, as a verbal form, is to restore and to renew, and it speaks of the renewing light on the surface of the moon as being the universal timekeeper prior to us having electricity and mechanization. What about Kodesh?
Let me find Kodesh here. I thought I wrote them all down ahead of time. Kodesh, of course, is a cloth or a cue. That's the one that looks like the sun is coming up on the horizon or going down, I suppose you could say as well. And that would indicate, in the more ancient stuff, that would be the time and light. It can also mean wake and hope. But
it can't be the setting sun. It has to be a rising sun because it speaks of hope and expectation.
Okay.
And hope and expectation are the result of a rising sun. So it speaks of the growing light of the sun, which would speak to the renewal of the day, right? The restoration of light, correct? Restoration of hope, because in light there is hope, in light there is life, and light there is the ability to be observant. But there's no question that it's about the renewal of those things because of all of the associated meanings of that letter. So it's the rising sun.
Okay, so we got sunrise. And then the second letter, of course, is a delete, which is a door, which would be like the door to Passover in this context.
Yeah, exactly.
And so a place that we can enter. And then, of course, we have the teeth, which is nourishing words.
Yeah.
So
nourishing words lead to the doorway where we are restored by the light.
Right. That's what
pretty good. Pretty good word. As Yahowah is introducing Pesach to us, he's telling us that the month that should be the first and foremost month of the year, and he has used letters to write month in such a way that nourishing words provide the doorway to being restored by the light. And Pesach is the doorway. And it's a doorway into the light. And it's light that makes us immortal, which is the very basis of Pesach.
Right. You know, when I was breaking these things down just to see what they have to say, I first started out with the big keywords like Mizraim and Moshe and Kodesh, and which is set apart also. I forgot to throw that in. Yeah. But also what amazed me is the ones that preceded the Rosh and the Hods and the Rishon.
Right.
When I broke those down, they were amazingly similar, even though you think in simple terms, this is the key word in a sentence, and this is the little simple word, this is a transition that says like uppermost and so forth.
Right.
But let me just read the Rosh and the Hods and the Rishon.
Right, because the next one says, this month, which is this time of renewal, where the word will lead you to the doorway to being restored by light, shall be your first and foremost, La Rosh.
Everything in here seems to tell the same story if you look deep enough, and it kind of was blowing me away. Like the Rosh, obviously that's the head and the top and the first, and it's the most important, which is fine. But it also means, I also found that it means the head who determines the inheritance, who gets betrothed to whom, and the root meaning,
and the covenant is the form of inheritance, and covenant in Hebrew, bereth, means to as a marriage vow, a betrothal.
Right. And then when you get to the Hodes, the next one you had, which is the H, the H and the D and the Shin, or the Hey and the Delete and the Shin, it means to renew once again the new moon, of course, and the first crescent, but it also is to renew, restore, repair, and make like new.
All right. And that's the verbal root of Kodesh. That's the reason why it's so obvious that the Kodesh is the renewing light on the moon's surface, and that the spiritual implication of this whole timekeeping mechanism is that we are renewed when we observe Yahowah's calendar and his invitations.
And then you have Rishon, which is repeated there because you have the Rosh there again in there. And you have foremost, first, head of time or position, and this is a particular time, a set apart time. I'm just going with what this means to me, so I can be all right. Then it's also I found that it meant the head of, or such as a head of a river, a time, such as an event. And I'm thinking, wow, you know, every little word is really quite. And
Rishon, which is, it says, and it shall be for you and on your behalf, who, which is the preposition, and then la. So it's for you to approach, on your behalf, for you to approach. So this doorway that the observant individual finds the restoration of light is on our behalf and for us to approach, la, and in this case, that is comprised of lamed, the shepherd's staff. We're going to approach the shepherd, and shall be on your behalf the first, and this is the Rishon word that you were just dealing with.
Right.
So observant individuals will pay attention to the spoken word, and as a result, they're going to be made, it'll be enlarged and made secure and protected in the home, the Yahowah, and become children of an inheritance.
That's the inheritance, yes.
Right.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I mean, maybe not as you much because you've been dealing with for years, but I just go, wow.
Yes, it's a very consistent story. He's focused on the same thing. It's really, when you boil it all down, the whole Torah and the entirety of the covenant is a very simple concept. We've turned it into religions, we've turned it into laws, we've turned it into the greatest story ever told. No, it's a very, very simple concept. If you pay attention to the words of Yahowah, you will be a child of inheritance. You'll be born into his family, restored with his light. You'll enter the doorway to his home. Isn't that what's being said over and over again? By the way, how many times is Kodesh written in this opening statement?
Well, you count there's one, and then there's the
Three.
Three.
Okay. 3 times. This walking through the doorway to being restored by the light is repeated 3 times. God doesn't want to miss. So here we are thus far. In addition, Yahowah spoke, Amar, as God, to Moshe, the one who draws out, and to Aaron, source of enlightened free will, in the realm of the crucible, Mitzrayim, where there are signposts along the way for those who are observant, and in this case, there are signposts along the waterway for those who are observant, for the purpose of saying and promising and approaching La Amar, this month, that's the first Kodesh, HaKodesh, time when light is restored, and looking at the letters themselves, this is the word leads to the doorway where we are restored by the light, shall be your first and foremost, Rosh, time of renewal, Kodesh again. It shall be for you and on your behalf for you to approach, La, the shepherd's staff, repeated twice, The first, Rishon, initial and foremost, Kodesh, month, time of renewal, a third time, of the year, Hasana. Sana means a time of change. Did you analyze Sana?
Yeah, it's, let me get back here. Sana. Oh, Sana. Yeah, it just said time of change, but the letters, of course, are the Shin and the Nun, which is, of course, nourishing words again. It also means to continue in a year or a year that repeats, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
But the Shin, of course, we know that pretty well now as we're thinking along the lines of nourishing words, and the inheritance, of course, is the
firm.
Firm,
Yeah, a child with an inheritance.
Nun.
Right. Yeah, for those who are observant. For those who are standing up, paying attention, engaged. Matter of fact, more than observant, the differences between the head and the standing person is, well, the standing person, the hey, means to observe, to pay attention, to behold. That individual is engaged. You know, one person is engaged strictly in their eyes, their ears, their mind, and their mouth. You know, it's a cerebral thing, processing, taking in information, processing it. Okay, that's the Rosh engaged. The hey engaged is a person standing up, reaching up, looking up to God. This is the person that said, okay, I processed that information, now I'm going to respond, and I'm going to respond by walking with God, by reaching up and taking God's hand, by paying attention to Him. So it's a little different twist on observing and engaging. And in this particular case, if you don't get up on your feet, you're not going to walk through that doorway, are you?
No, you have to walk through a doorway. You have to walk through the doorway.
Yeah. Then he says, speak to the entire. This would be Devar, which is the Hebrew word for word. Devar we've done many times, but Rosh, Be'eth, Death. Observant individuals will find the doorway to the home, is what that means. Doorway, home. Pay attention, observe. So observant individuals will find the doorway to the home, the family home. To the entire witnessing community, Ida. Ida is a word that is in its variations appears throughout the Torah. It's just as ed, it means testimony and witness. As odd, vocalized as odd as opposed to ed, it means everlasting and restoring. So as ed, it is a everlasting witness and restoring testimony. Now this was written in the feminine as Ida because Yisrael, like so many things associated with the covenant, and covenant itself, are feminine in Hebrew. Torah, for example, is feminine in Hebrew. So speak to the entire witnessing community, Ida, of the children of Yisrael. What is Ida? Is that one of the words that you analyzed?
Yeah, but I have it as an ain, a delete, and a hey. Is that correct?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so the ain, of course, is an I, and of course we are viewing things, observing things. In this case, it's right next to the delete, which is the doorway, which, you can't get through this passage without a doorway, almost every other word. And then, of course, you have the engaged individual that's standing up of the hey. And it means, of course, company, group, common. It also means testimony. These people are, telling their testimony.
Right. So if you want the proper perspective on how to walk through the doorway, that is being presented as Pesach. If you want the proper perspective, that would be the ain. On walking through walking would be the hey, through the doorway, the D and Ida. If you want the proper perspective on doing this, then the Torah is going to provide it. Yahowah is providing us with the proper perspective so that we can engage and walk through the doorway that He is providing for us. And so he says, speak to the entire witnessing community of The children of Israel. Ben, of course, is one of our favorite words because it is the perfect depiction of how the letters describe the concept. You don't have to be literate to read the Hebrew and the alphabet that Yahowah delivered his Torah. Because what you would see is a sperm and a family home.
And a family home, right.
And for that we have the Hebrew word for child.
And then if the plural, of course, you have Yah's hand reaching down, which is quite significant to me.
Yes. Yeah, bene. So, yeah, and it's almost always the plural. So it's Yahweh reaches his hand down to the children conceived with an inheritance, and so that they can be part of his family and enter his home. Bene.
But before we go too far, let me go back in Edah. There was a root word that I thought was really interesting, where you take the ain and the delete, the first two letters in Edah, and there's a variation on it. If you put a yod in front of it, it means to meet an appointment. Yeah.
Yada. Yeah. And absolutely. But the ed and the edah are also used as variations of the tent of the witness and the tent of the testimony. So it's the tent of the everlasting witness and the tent of the restoring testimony. So it's the same word is going to be used to describe meeting with Yahowah in his tent of the witness, or his tabernacle, his home during the Exodus.
I think out of the thought that comes to me when you do these things, and especially when we play around with the letters as well, and you can't miss this story. I mean, not only can't miss it, if you observe enough, nobody can, and you get your perspective right based on what is actually said here, and you can see the big picture. You can't be snatched away.
No, that is the roadmap, and the map and the compass are provided by God, and the light. You got all the light you need to observe the map. The map is very clear. All the symbols are extraordinarily clear, even if you aren't literate in Hebrew. The symbols are clear. The map is well illuminated, and Yahowah has told you the proper orientation of that map. It's just a matter now. Do you want to walk from places of trouble to the places of light?
Yeah. Well, the whole journey for me was to find out what y'all really wanted, and to find out whether I could participate or not. And it's just I wasn't doing all this just as some kind of cerebral exercise,
Right.
But it's just fascinating.
With every letter, with every word.
Every letter, every word.
Yeah, and even just if you take a view a little higher up, and without looking at the letters, you just look at Yisrael, which is Ish, Sarah, El, a combination of three very common Hebrew words. Ish being individual, Sarah being the name of the mother of the covenant, of Abraham's wife, the mother of Ishak, which means to engage, to endure, to be empowered by, to strive with, and El being the title of God. Yisrael is the children of Israel. If that appeals to you, then this message is for you. If that doesn't appeal to you, then it's not. And then it was so speak to the children, provide the doorway to the family home for those who are observant. Speak to the entire witnessing community, the restoring testimony, to the children of Yisrael to say. And to say here again is La Amar. So it's not just Amar, but preceded with the Hebrew word using the staff to approach.
Approach, push towards or go towards or to, right?
Right. So on the 10th of this month, accordingly, each individual, Ish, shall obtain lakah, and we'll come back to lakah in a moment, on their behalf, law, to approach, a male lamb, a sheh, for himself and his home, his bayet, his family. A lamb, a say, according to their father's household, family and home, bayet. Well, so there's a few words here that we have not encountered thus far that are really essential to our understanding. Why don't we begin? Pick your favorite to begin with.
Okay. How about lamb?
Okay.
This when I sat up last night thinking about it when I was going to bed, I said, gosh, am I dumb? It's a sin and a hay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, sin is drawn like a thorn bush. It means not only a fence to protect something with, it also is a thorny bush. If you ever touch it, you're going to be in pain. It pierces. And you have so we have a fence that can protect. We have something that pierces. We have a thorn of crowns, if you want to recall that. We have also
so an individual that took a stand that is caught in a thorn bush. On the first enactment, since this is about Passover now, the male lamb is being brought in 4 days before Passover, the 10th day. Are you aware of how Yahowah provided the sacrifice, the lamb, for Abraham and Yitzhak on Mount Moriah?
Exactly. The thorny bush, he got caught in the thorny bush.
Right. There was a lamb caught in the thorns. This word for this is an individual caught in the thorns. This is what he chose for a sheep. I mean, come on.
Yeah. It's just amazing.
And then, of course, at the fulfillment, Yahowah, the sacrificial lamb, was forced to wear a crown of thorns. Welcome back to Shattering Myths. Kirk, it's interesting that Shay is not the primary Hebrew word for lamb. Al is the primary Hebrew word for lamb. And Al speaks of a doorway. But Yahowah was not ready to establish the doorway. He's establishing the lamb at this point. And when Yahowah used a Hebrew word to depict his meetings with Abraham, he used ish as an individual. So this depiction of lamb, and there's many Hebrew words for lamb, is an individual speaking of Yahowah, who was both stuck in the thorns during the first enactment of Passover with Abraham to affirm the covenant, but then wore a crown of thorns prior to his fulfillment of Pesach as the sacrificial lamb. It's an interesting thing that God had a word for lamb that depicted the nature of that lamb.
Yeah. If you asked an Aussie, which is the biggest producer of sheep in the world, their symbols would be for wool and food and perhaps money, because it's such a big money crop. The whole economy used to run on it. I mean, you never come up with this.
No.
No.
And the joy of all of this is to make these connections. To see the individual that's encompassed by the thorns in the lamb. And to know that individual was the individual that was present on Mount Moriah with Abraham, where Yahowah said, don't take the boy's life. I will provide the sacrifice. And then there was the lamb that was, and that lamb, by the way, used a common word for lamb, al, because that lamb was providing the doorway to Yahowah's home. This lamb is being identified with that lamb, which is why it says there. That's the joy of the whole thing. What about lakah?
Lakah?
Shattering is the definition of it, but how is it written?
Well, it's written with, it starts out with an al, of course, which is the lamb, the thing that guides us,
the shepherd's staff.
Shepherd's staff, right. And then we have the cloth again, we have the sunrise, the new meaning, newness, hope. Then we have the rosh, which is once again the person engaged in all their senses, thinking, considering, looking, reading, preparing. And once again, it's the hay, who's if you want to stretch it to that, he's now engaged. He got up, he thought about it, he's got up, and he's walking towards.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing.
A person walking towards the shepherd for the opportunity to be restored in the light.
Yeah, and it also refers to a meeting in the old days of meetings and events and bringing people and things together by purchase, together by purchase, entrance, or a high place, are all meanings that I found for that in ancient Hebrew times.
Yeah, on their behalf, which is law for them to approach the separate staff, a lamb again. So lamb is written how many times here? Same answer, by the way, as Kodesh.
3. Okay, that's good.
So the lamb's written 3 times, and the lamb is the means to provide that time of renewal, that doorway for the individual who is upright and prepared to enter it, the doorway to the restoration of light, being restored by the light. It's the lamb that is bringing that capability to us. So we've got lamb written 3 times, and you have this time of renewal in the light written 3 times. Not by coincidence there. So you bring it. You're asked on the 10th day to bring the lamb into the home. So is there any chance this was out in the wilderness?
No.
No, this is into the home. And how is home written?
I'm sure it's Be'eth.
Yeah, it's Be'eth. And so, what are the 3 letters of Be'eth?
Well, we have the B, which is the home.
Family home.
Family home.
So the letter Be'eth is actually, the meaning of the letter itself is home and family. So isn't that telling you that the depiction, which was a family home, that's the line drawing, the family home, and the name of the word and the meaning of the word are all the same? Pretty good reinforcement, isn't it?
Absolutely. And then you have the yod and the tall.
Right.
Second. Yeah. So we have a hand reaching down, use the Yahowah, and the T for the symbol, the mark, the sign.
Yeah, Yahowah's sign. His mark, his signature on the family. And it's his name that the family bears. We'll be back tomorrow.